Alright class, today we're going to do section 6.2, operations, properties, and applications of real numbers. Okay, so we're going to perform the operations of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division of signed numbers, apply the rules for order of operations, identify and apply properties of addition and multiplication of real numbers, determine change in investment and meteorological data using subtraction and absolute value. Okay, so let's start with the operations. The addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division of signed numbers will be presented. So the result of adding two numbers is called their sum. The numbers being added are called add-ins or terms. Now let's look at like signs. When we add two numbers with the same sign, by adding their absolute values. The sign of the sum is the same as the sign of the two numbers. Okay. When we add unlike signs, we're adding two numbers with different signs by subtracting the smaller absolute value from the larger. To find the absolute value of the sum is the same sign as the number with the larger absolute value. Okay. The result of subtracting two numbers is called their difference. In A minus B, A is called the minand and B is called the subtracted. For all real numbers A and B, A minus B equals A plus negative B. Change the sign of the subtraction and add. Okay, the result of multiplying two numbers is called their product. The two numbers being multiplied are called factors. Okay, for like signs, we multiply two numbers with the same sign by multiplying their absolute values to find the absolute value of the product, and the sign of the product is positive. So if I'm multiplying two positive numbers, it comes out positive. If I'm multiplying two negative numbers, it still turns out positive. Now with unlike signs, we're multiplying two numbers with different signs by multiplying their absolute values to find the absolute value of the product, and the sign of the product is negative. So if I multiply a positive and a negative, it turns out negative. If I multiply a negative and a positive, it turns out negative as well. Unlike signs wind up with a negative outcome when multiplying. Okay, dividing. The result of dividing two numbers is called the quotient. And the quotient, A divided by B, or A over B, where B is not equal to 0. A is called the dividend or numerator, and B is called the divisor or denominator. For real numbers A, B, and C, if A divided by B equals C, then A has to equal B times C. Okay. For like signs, when we divide two numbers with the same sign by dividing their absolute values to find the absolute value of the quotient, the sign of the quotient is positive. Okay. And when we have unlike signs, so we divide two numbers with different signs by dividing their absolute values to find the absolute value of the quotient, the sign of the quotient is negative. So division works a lot like multiplication here when it comes to signs. Like signs, it turns out positive. Unlike signs, it turns out negative. Okay, let's try some examples because sometimes the definitions can blur what we're trying to do, and sometimes it's easier to see with an example. So we want to simplify each expression. Let's start with A. Okay, now 11 plus negative 8. Okay, now this is essentially the same thing as 11 minus 8. If we subtract 11 and 8 here, we should get 3. Okay, you can use a calculator, you can count on your fingers, do what you got to do. All right, for B, I have 3 minus negative 4. What do we know and what did we learn about minusing negatives? Okay, so 3 minus a negative 4. If I have minus a negative here, it's supposed to become a positive. So it should be the same thing as 3 plus 4. That should be 7. Okay, 16 or negative 16 divided by negative 4. Now, I have a division here. Okay, the division of 16 and 4 is 4. I have the same sign. Remember, division works just like multiplication. If you have the same sign, it turns out positive. So negative 16 divided by negative 4 should give me a positive 4. 7 times negative 4. Here I have unlike signs. The 7 is positive, the 4 is negative, so it's going to turn out negative. Okay, 7 times 4 is 28. So I should have negative 28. Okay. Now, what happens if we have a division with 0? If 0 is divided by a non-zero number, the quotient is 0. That is, 0 divided by b equals 0 for any b that is not 0. So 0 divided by anything other than 0 is 0. So 0 divided by 1 is 0. 0 divided by 10,453 is 0. 0 divided by negative 14 is 0. But we can't divide by 0. Division by 0 is undefined. Okay, so we want to avoid dividing by 0. Let's look at some order of operations. When a problem involves more than one operation, we follow the order of operations. If parentheses or square brackets are present, step 1 would be to work separately above and below any fraction bar. Step 2 would be to use the rules on the next slide within each set of parentheses or square brackets, starting with the innermost set and working outward. Okay. Now, if no parentheses or brackets are present, we're going to apply any exponents. Then we're going to do any multiplications or divisions in the order in which they occur, working left to right. Then we're going to do any additions or subtractions in the order in which they occur, working left to right. Okay, a lot of you, I'm sure, remember the order operations as PEMDAS, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Okay, so using the order of operations, we want to simplify this expression below. So here we have 6 times 2 squared plus 5 minus 4 times 1 plus 2 in parentheses. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to work these parentheses. Okay, so the parentheses here, 1 plus 2 gives me a 3. So my first step here simplifies it down to 6 times 2 squared plus 5 minus 4 times 3. Now, the next thing I'm going to want to do is my exponents. 2 squared. 2 squared equals 4. So here, I'm looking at 6 times 4 plus 5 minus 4 times 3. Okay. Now, I want to do multiplication or division working left to right. Okay. So 6 times 4 is 24 plus 5 minus 4 times 3 is 12. So I took care of both of these multiplications working left to right. Now I'm going to do the addition and subtraction left to right as well. So here I would do 24 plus 5, which would be 29. I'll give you an intermediate step. 29 minus 12 is 17. Okay. Order of operations. Now let's look at the properties of addition and multiplication. For real numbers a, b, and c, the following properties hold. You have your closure property, which says that a plus b and a times b are real numbers. Okay, your commutative property says that a plus b equals b plus a, and a times b equals b times a. Your associative property, a plus b plus c, is the same thing as a plus b plus c, okay, with different arranged parentheses there. So, and then for multiplication, it's parentheses a times b, close parentheses, times c, is the same thing as a parentheses b times c, close parentheses. Okay, your identity property says that there is a real number 0 such that a plus 0 is a, and 0 plus a is a. And there is a real number 1 such that a times 1 equals a, and 1 times a equals a. 0 is the identity element for addition. 1 is the identity element for multiplication. Okay. For each, so if we're looking at inverses here, for each real number a, there is a single real number, negative a, such that negative a plus a is the same thing as a plus negative a, which renders a 0. Okay. For each non-zero real number a, there is a single real number, 1 over A, such that A times 1 over A equals 1 over A times A equals 1. So that here, negative A is the additive inverse of A. That was from the first part here. That was your additive inverse. And then 1 over A is your multiplicative inverse. That's from your second part there. Okay, or the reciprocal of A. All right, the distributive property of multiplication with respect to addition is our next property we're going to look at. So that A parentheses B plus C close parentheses is the same thing as A times B plus A times C. Now that's your distributive property because all we did here was distribute the A to the B and distribute the A to the C. You could also write it as parentheses B plus C close parentheses times A equals B times A plus C times A. Same thing here. All I really did was apply the A to both things within the parentheses. Okay. Now, let's check an example here with the applications of real numbers. The record high temperature in a small town was 108 degrees Fahrenheit, and its record low temperature was negative 43 degrees Fahrenheit. How much greater was the highest temperature than the lowest temperature? Now, what we're going to want to do here is subtract the lower temperature from the higher temperature. Okay, so what our function would look like down here is 108 minus negative 43. Okay, now we've got to keep with some of our properties here. We have a minus and negative, so that's going to turn into the positive here. So I should wind up with 108 plus 43, which gives me 151. So their temperature range was 151 degrees from their highest temperature to their lowest temperature. Okay, so the difference there was 151 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, that concludes 6.1. If you have any questions, reach out and email me and let me know. Other than that, I will see you next lecture.